Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Stef Soto, Taco Queen by Jennifer Torres, narrated by Kyla García. Chapter 1. Papi had pretty much promised to stop bringing Tia Perla to St. Scholastica School. But when the last bell rings on a Monday afternoon, there she is, just the same, waiting for me in the parking lot. Tia Perla, yet again. Tia Perla, like always. Tia Perla, huffing and wheezing and looking a little bit grubby, no matter how clean she actually is. Tia Perla, leaving anyone who comes near her smelling like jalapenos and cooking oil, a not exactly bad combination that clings to your hair and crawls under your fingernails. Tia Perla, Papi's taco truck, stuffed into a parking space meant for a much smaller car. A normal car, a station wagon, something beige or black or white, with 4 doors and power windows. I must look as annoyed as I feel, because just then, my best friend, Amanda García, stops explaining how she turned an old t-shirt into a new headband and wags her finger. "Watch it, Steph," she warns in her best scolding abuelita voice. "Keep rolling your eyes like that, and they'll get stuck up there." I roll my eyes at her so hard they almost bounce off my forehead. She snorts, pulls the headband over her ears, and jogs off to soccer practice, leaving me to deal with Papi and old Tia Perla on my own. I didn't mind the taco truck when I was younger, and seeing Tia Perla in the parking lot of my Catholic school meant corn chips and cold soda for all my friends. Back then, when Papi lifted me up into her front seat, I was playground royalty. No one else got picked up in a taco truck. But now, hardly anyone else gets picked up at all, let alone in a taco truck. I've been negotiating for months, trying to persuade Mommy and Papi to let me walk alone. Not even all the way home, just to the gas station a few blocks away from St. Scholastica, where Papi parks the truck most afternoons. I'd head straight there, I swore. Wouldn't stop for anything. Wouldn't talk to anybody. I could tell they weren't crazy about the idea. But this weekend, Mommy and Papi had finally given in. So why was Tia Perla in the parking lot with Papi in the front seat waving? I dropped to the ground, pretending to tie my shoelace and thinking, maybe if I'm down here long enough, Papi will remember our agreement, leave, and meet me at the gas station like we planned. Instead, he honks the horn and waves even more wildly. "Ah, isn't that your dad, Estefania?" Julia Sandoval asks, louder than she really needs to. Just perfect. I stand up and gush. "Thank you, Julia, so much. You are always so helpful." She just tilts her head and flashes her sparkling sweet smile. I walk across the parking lot, eyes glued to the ground and arms crossed sourly against my chest. I don't look up, not even when I'm climbing into the truck, until Papi asks, like he asks every single day, "¿Aprendiste algo?" Did I learn something? That I can't trust him to keep his end of a deal, maybe? I keep my mouth shut while I sift furiously through my mental glossary of irritation, searching for words to tell him exactly how frustrated I am. Not coming up with any, I instead shoot Papi a glare that says, "Are you kidding me right now?" I hope that's clear enough. His shoulders drop, and he shakes his head. "What can I tell you, mija? Those guys at the gas station must have forgotten their wallets, or their appetites. Maybe both. I couldn't wait around for customers any longer. Let's see if they're hungry downtown." I don't know what to say to that, and before I can think of anything smart, I hear a bam, 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 bam on my door. Huh? I'm confused for a second, and then I realize who must be knocking. I crank down the window, and sure enough, it's Arthur Choi, all 4 feet 10 inches of him, and even 5 feet with his hair included. He looks up at me and yanks his headphones down around his neck. They are bright orange, and so big he looks almost like he's wearing a life preserver. "Hey, Steph, think I can get a ride to the library?" Usually, Arthur's mom picks him up from school, not because she doesn't trust him to walk alone, but because he lives so far away. When she has to work late, he goes to the library to wait for her, finishing his homework, reading his magazines, listening to his music. Without a chaperone. In peace. Arthur and I have known each other since kindergarten, back when his mom and my dad teamed up and trailed the school bus in her minivan anytime our class had a field trip. Unlike my parents, though, Arthur seemed to have noticed that he isn't 5 years old anymore. I turn to Papi. "Órale." He nods. It's a word that comes in many flavors. Sometimes it means yes, and other times, yes. Sometimes, listen, and sometimes, I hear you. This time it means, of course, and I slide to the middle of the bench seat as Arthur hops up next to me. Finally, Papi starts the engine, and as soon as he does, his banda music comes bouncing out of the speakers and pouring, I'm sure of it, right through the open windows. Unfazed, Arthur bops his head right along to the pa rhythm. I slam mine back into the seat and squeeze my eyes shut. Please, can we just go now? Chapter 2. Papi pulls over at the curb across from the library. I expect him to leave the truck running while Arthur grabs his backpack off the floor of the cab, but instead, he parks, unbuckles his seatbelt, and steps outside. We can't be stopping here, I think, taking stock of the neighborhood on the other side of Tia Perla's windshield. No shoebox-shaped office buildings full of lawyers or accountants or real estate agents, their stomachs grumbling for a late afternoon snack. No auto repair shops with impatient walk-in customers looking for ways to kill time while they wait for their oil changes and smog checks. Nothing but neat houses with neat lawns, a basketball hoop in every other driveway. Just behind the library, there's a small playground with a tire swing, a slide, and a couple of benches. And if you weren't an expert in taco truck terrain, you might consider it promising. But I know from experience that you could park for hours at a playground like that and be lucky to see even a dog walker or two. One of them might come up to the window, but just to ask for a free glass of water. "Arturo," Papi calls. Arthur lifts his nose out of his backpack, where he's been fishing for his library card. He squints at me, his scrunched-up eyebrows asking, "What's going on?" "No idea," I say. He opens his door, and we both climb down, following Papi's voice to the back of the truck. We find him at the cutting board, about to chop a bunch of green onions. Papi works quickly, dicing a tomato, sprinkling pepper. When he's finished, he presents Arthur with something that looks like a burrito, only it's wrapped in a giant lettuce leaf instead of a tortilla. "Prepared especially for you," he announces with a flourish. "The wheat-free, dairy-free, egg-free, nut-free, and meat-free super burrito." Arthur is allergic to basically everything, and is a vegetarian for environmental reasons. Sometimes between customers, Papi experiments with new Arthur-friendly dishes, claiming the challenge keeps his kitchen skills as sharp as his knives. We add the best recipes to the official Arthur Choi menu, a note card taped to the door of the fridge. So far, there's a mango salad with charred corn and slivers of red onion, avocado halves stuffed with rice, green chili, cilantro, and bell peppers, and an almost overripe banana, cut into coins and sautéed in margarine, brown sugar, and cinnamon until each crispy slice is floating in a rich, caramel-colored sauce. I'm wondering what inspired this afternoon's lettuce leaf burrito when I realized that if Papi had time to dream it up between customers, he really must have had a slow day with Tia Perla after all. And it's possible I overreacted about the whole gas station thing. I glance over at him. Papi looks up at me and winks, before nudging Arthur to have a taste.
Ándale,
he says. Yeah, go on, I add, curious now. Try it. Arthur considers the burrito for a moment, then devours almost half of it in one enormous bite. Papi and I watch, hungry for his reaction.
Oh,
he mumbles, cheeks puffed like they're hiding ping-pong balls. He swallows. Pretty good, Mr. Soto. Not as good as the bananas, but pretty good. Thanks.
pretty good?
Papi crosses his arms and cocks his head.
Pues, does it go on the menu?
Arthur looks at me, looks at Papi, and grins. It goes on the menu.
Órale,
Papi thunders, holding out his hands for Arthur and me to slap.
it goes on the menu. Specialty of the house.
As Arthur goes back to devouring his burrito, Papi locks Tia Perla's kitchen door and gives it a quick tap, the way you might congratulate an old friend with a pat on the back, then hops into the cab and settles into his seat. 2 bites later, when he's done eating, Arthur flashes me a peace sign and pulls on his earphones. Stick-straight tufts of spiky hair spring up around the orange band. See ya, I say. Papi and I watch him cross the street. Not until the library doors part to let Arthur in, then close again safely behind him, does Papi start the truck.
Vámonos,
he asks me. Let's go. I nod. We drive to a convenience store downtown, where the owner lets us use his parking lot as long as we send customers inside to buy their sodas. It's a fair deal. The little shop isn't the busiest stop on our route, but we know we can count on some regulars, commuters who pull in for tortas and tacos to tide them over on the drive home. Gray-haired men in starched shirts who come to the store for lottery tickets and decide a burrito is a good bet, too. While Papi lifts open the canopy, warms up the grill, and unfolds 2 steel chairs on either side of a salsa-stained card table, I drag my backpack to the spot at the cutting counter that he always leaves clear for me to finish my homework. He notices me sneaking a handful of corn chips, and before long, a quesadilla, cut into wedges and arranged around a dollop of chunky guacamole, appears on a plate next to my math book. People always ask if I get sick of taco truck food, if I'm bored eating the same thing night after night. But what they don't know is that it's never the same thing. Somehow, Papi always prepares exactly what I'm craving. On the hottest days, when my bangs stick to my forehead, there are salads drizzled with lemon juice. When I leave school exhausted after a particularly tough history test, there's the comfort of a plain flour tortilla, smeared with nothing but melting butter. I spoon some guacamole onto my quesadilla and wonder what Mommy's up to at home. Getting ready for work, I guess. She's a cashier at the open-all-night grocery store. You would never believe, she always says, what people need at 1 o'clock in the morning. A box of pancake mix, a birthday card, a cantaloupe. Most of the time, she doesn't get home until I'm already in bed. And since Mommy and Papi won't even think about letting me stay home alone, I'm parked with Tia Perla until the dinner rush lets up. It feels like forever. Finally, though, Papi taps me on the shoulder. He has scooped the last glob of sour cream onto the last super burrito of the day, and it's time to pack up Tia Perla. We take her to the commissary, where drivers from all over the city store their supplies and keep their food trucks overnight. I help him wipe down the countertops and rinse out the big plastic containers we use for storing onions and tomatoes. When we're finished, he tucks my backpack under his arm, and we walk together to our pickup. The lights in the parking lot blaze bright white against the inky sky. I'm wondering how I could recreate the effect with paint and paper when Papi jokes,
Say buenas noches to Tia Perla.
I yawn and wave. She looks a little out of place, parked next to so many other trucks, with flashier paint jobs and shinier chrome bumpers, her tired headlights pleading with us not to leave her behind. Chapter 3. I can remember the day Papi brought Tia Perla home and parked her in the driveway early on a Saturday morning. Mommy had been pacing the living room. She wore her green silk dress and black heels as though she were on her way to a party or to meet someone important. I sat on the couch in the itchy gray skirt I usually saved for church. When she heard Papi honk the horn, she squealed, tucked a stray curl back behind my ear, and grabbed both my wrists. "They're here!" I yelped.
Aquí están,
she echoed. The two of us ran outside together. Mommy cleared all 3 front porch steps in one eager hop, then stopped short on the lawn and wrinkled her nose. After listening to Papi gush about the truck, the flat-top grill and 4-burner stove, the stainless steel walls and brand-new tires, we were expecting a beauty, a champion purebred. This truck looked more like a scruffy shelter rescue, in need of a warm bath and a loving home. The tires were brand new, but everything else seemed dented or dusty. Still, Papi stood smiling in front of the truck, his chest puffed up proudly, his hands planted on his hips. Mommy and I looked at each other. Then we smiled too. Until that Saturday morning, Papi had worked as a house painter for a big construction company. He had to leave the house early, sometimes before the streetlights had flickered out, and he always came home with aching shoulders. At night, after he and Mommy had sent me to bed, I would hear them whispering at the kitchen table.
But if I could start something of my own.
After a while, those kitchen table whispers grew into a roar of plans and daydreams. Standing over the stove, refrying beans, Papi would suddenly burst,
When I open my restaurant, I'll serve all kinds of beans. Not just refritos, but black beans and frijoles de la olla, too.
His mother, my abuelita, had taught him to cook when he was my age. She didn't know where he might travel someday, she told him, but wherever he went, he would have her recipes to bring him back home. Now, nothing made Papi happier than sharing that warm at-home feeling with others. Mommy would spoon Papi's homemade salsa onto her breakfast eggs, take a bite, and then, with her mouth still half full, exclaim,
Mi amor, at your restaurant, you must make your own salsa. Promise me, nothing from a jar.
And one sunny afternoon, when I poked around the refrigerator looking for something cool to drink, I asked, Papi, can there be strawberry soda at your restaurant? He swept me off the floor and lifted me over his head.
Órale,
he shouted.
Strawberry soda, orange soda, grape soda.
I giggled, my braids dangling over Papi's nose.
Lime soda, mango soda, cherry soda.
Mommy shook her head at us and poured me a glass of ice water. That's when we started saving. When the daydreams became so real we could taste them, as sweet and fizzy as strawberry soda. Scrimping was harder than I thought it would be, but also a little like a game, with all of us pitching in to pinch pennies. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we ate plain beans wrapped in corn tortillas, so many that I still can't stand them. Mommy stitched patches over the rips in my jeans instead of buying new ones. She also took in sewing projects from the dry cleaners around the corner gathering needle and thread after dinner, and settling down to repair a seam or fasten a button. I thought I could make some extra money too, maybe walking dogs or pulling weeds. Mommy and Papi said no to that. Instead, they put me in charge of making sure we never left the lights on in an empty room, and agreed to let me chip in the nickels and pennies I had stashed in my piggy bank. I poured a silvery stream of coins onto the coffee table, and as the three of us sorted them into cardboard rolls from the bank, Papi put his hand over mine and said,
Gracias.
We worked and saved for a little more than a year, until one day, while she was reading the newspaper, Mommy stopped and said, She waved Papi and me over and pointed to a small ad in the corner of the page. Food truck for sale. Used. Good condition. Papi and I agreed. It wasn't a restaurant, but it would be ours, and we had saved just enough.
It wouldn't hurt just to look,
he said. 2 weeks later, the truck was in our driveway. The previous owner had called it La Perla del Mar, the Pearl of the Sea. The name was painted in loopy blue letters across one side of the truck, and it was the only thing that Papi thought really needed fixing. La Perla del Mar sounded like seafood, he thought, and that wasn't the food that brought him back home. We sat on the lawn, Mommy spreading Papi's jacket out between the grass and her green dress, and tried to come up with a new name. Señor Salsa, Mommy proposed. I groaned.
Holy frijoles,
Papi suggested. I threw a clump of dried grass at him. He ducked and laughed. And then it came to me. Tia Perla. My parents looked at each other, not sure whether we were still joking. No, really, I said, standing up and dusting off my skirt. Listen. It was a name that sounded like home, I told them, like food cooked from scratch by your favorite aunt. Plus, we won't have to repaint the whole thing. Mommy tilted her head right to left, my idea rolling around her mind like a marble. Tia Perla, she said. Papi nodded, slowly at first, and then feverishly.
Órale,
he growled, hugging Mommy and me tight.
Órale.
We congratulated ourselves for a few happy minutes, until Papi slapped his palm to his forehead.
Almost forgot.
He climbed back inside the truck and returned with 3 bottles of strawberry soda. Tia Perla was home and officially part of the family. Over the next few weekends, we painted over the seascape that had been airbrushed onto the truck's side, replacing it with bunches of red and white roses. We covered up most of the old lettering, too. Everything but Perla. Papi had lifted me onto a stepladder and handed me a paintbrush. In careful blue strokes, I wrote, Tia. 5 years later, our paint job is faded and chipped, and palm trees from the old seascape are peeking through in places. It needs touching up, I think, as I sketch in the margins of my social studies notes. But who's going to do it? I certainly don't want to spend any more time with Tia Perla than I absolutely have to. Chapter 4. Julia's house, behind a tall wrought iron gate, looks like it belongs on a different planet than mine, which is small and painted pink. But really, it's only a few blocks away. Our grandparents were friends back in Mexico, and it was Julia's dad who owned the construction company where Papi used to work. When we were little, before Tia Perla, Mommy used to drive Julia to school every morning and bring her back to our house every afternoon. Julia and I would haul Mommy's old purses and dress shoes to the front porch and pretend we were actresses, or bankers, or spies. Julia always decided, but it was always pretty fun. Then, when we got to 7th grade, Julia decided she was too old for a babysitter and persuaded her parents to let her take the bus to school. Not the school bus, the real public bus. She's the only one in our class who does, and it's just about her favorite thing to talk about. She flutters into class seconds after the bell rings, blows her bangs off her forehead, and sighs, "Oh, Miss Barlow, I'm so sorry I didn't get here in time, but my bus was running late." Like it's her own personal bus. Or at lunchtime, when she stands at the end of a table, tapping her foot on the linoleum until we all take a break from our conversations and look up. "You'll never believe," she begins, after she's sure she has everyone's attention, "what happened on my bus." Like anyone is even interested. But the thing is, a lot of people are interested. Even me. It's like she's living the 7th grade version of the glamorous lives we used to act out on my front porch. On Tuesday afternoon, I see Julia in the hallway, yanking books from her locker and shoving them in her backpack. "I can't believe he kept us after class," she fumes to Maddie, who's leaning against the lockers and coiling glossy black hair around her finger. Maddie is new this year and glued herself to Julia on the very first day. Arthur knows her from Sunday school, but still, she pretty much left her old reputation behind when she came to St. Scholastica. Was she first pick or last when they chose teams in PE? Was she ever sent home with head lice? Did she always win the spelling bee? If she started wearing feathers in her hair, would everyone else start wearing feathers too? We don't know. Maddie has nothing to live down and nothing to live up to. I'm more than a little jealous. Julia grumbles when she can't get her backpack zipped. "I'm going to miss my bus." I consider pretending I didn't hear, but she seems really upset, so I stop next to her locker. "Julia, if you need a ride, my dad can take you home." Julia and Maddie lock eyes for a moment. "No thanks." Julia blinks. She slings her navy blue cardigan over her shoulder and goes back to wrestling with her backpack. I shrug and walk down the hall. I'm only a few steps away when I hear Maddie ask, "Why don't you just go with her? Didn't you used to carpool or something?" Julia slams her locker shut. "Seriously? There's just no way. I mean, Steph and her truck smell like old tacos. What is she? The taco queen?" I don't turn around. I pretend not to hear, but my cheeks burn. Julia's always been bossy and kind of a show-off, but never straight up mean. I glance right and then left. No one's looking, so I pull my ponytail over my shoulder, bury my nose into it, and take a cautious sniff. Vanilla citrus blossom shampoo. So there. But I have to admit, isn't there just the faintest whiff of burnt tortilla mixed in? As soon as Papi and I get home a few hours later, I change out of my uniform and throw all of it, white blouse, plaid skirt, blue cardigan, into the dryer, with 3 lavender breeze dryer sheets, just to be safe. I try not to let Julia get to me, but after a week, I'm still not convinced I don't smell like Tia Perla. Before school starts, I wait outside our classroom with my sweater balled up under my arm. I stop Arthur and Amanda before they can step inside. "Come over here," I demand, taking them by their wrists and dragging them around the corner. "Now, smell this." I shove the cardigan under their noses. They look at each other, then back at me. "Go on," I say, shaking the sweater. "Smell it." They both take a sniff. "Okay." Amanda looks up. "That was awesome, Steph, and totally not weird at all. Are we allowed to go to class now?" "But does it smell?"
Sample complete. Ready to continue?